Hello, welcome to the Chirp YouTube channel. I am Christy. I am your friendly online speech language pathologist and specialist in children's communication development, which includes behavior, because as you know, behavior is a type of communication. We're going to be talking about communication today, as we do in every video, and this is a little bit of a challenging topic to talk about because we have all done this. If we work with children or have children, we have all done this, and we need to grow out of it as practitioners, as people who work with kids or people who have our own kids. This is something we need to move beyond if we want to really help our children with their development. I am talking about shaming kids or trying to control their behavior in shame-based ways. This is very difficult to recognize. Let me share a story with you. When I was finishing up my graduate work in communication disorders, my second master's degree is in communication disorders with a focus in speech language pathology. I am a speech language pathologist, and in order to become a speech language pathologist, we must have a master's degree. As part of that master's degree program, I did rotations in different environments to figure out how my profession would play out if I worked in that particular kind of environment. One of them was in a preschool, and I had a very, very little experience at that time. This is 25 years ago. I had very little experience with young children. I didn't have children myself. None of my friends had children at this time, and I was not yet an auntie. So I had really very little experience with children. And this was kind of one of those things where they throw you in to a preschool and you watch and listen and learn, and you get better at what you do. And thankfully I did get better, because when I started out, I was not very good. And I said things to kids like, "Stop drooling. Do you see the other kids running around with no shoes?" I did not understand children. I did not understand the reasons behind what their behaviors were, and I did not understand how to help them to develop. And it seemed to me, it seems to all of us at some point, that the way to manage children is to control them, make their behavior look like we want it to, make all children look the same, no matter what's going on under the surface. If they all sit on the floor or in their chairs, if they all are quiet during story time, if they all do what I expect them to do at the times I expected them to do it, then all is well. But all is not well, because we are neglecting a big part of what I believe our role as the adults in these relationships is, and that is building a relationship and knowing these children as individuals so that we can meet them where they are. We can understand their needs, and then we can help them develop. We can support them as they grow. That is important. We can't expect children without particular skills to automatically have those skills just because we shout at them, or just because we embarrass them, or just because we tell them we're disappointed, or we tell them they're being disrespectful. That is not going to automatically give a child a skill that she didn't have before. Our job as the grown-up is to be the teacher, is to help children develop. We can't do that from a basis of shame. Let me give you some things that shame cannot do. Shame will not build a relationship. Shame is unloving. It does not foster a sense of trust between me and a child. Shame is coercive. Shame is me trying to manipulate you into doing what I want. And it doesn't take into account what you need or what you want. It doesn't respect you as a human being with your own desires and wants and abilities. Shaming can lead children to have spurts or outbursts of challenging behavior because we aren't understanding their motivations. If a child is not sitting still through 20 minutes of story time and being quiet, it doesn't mean that that child is being naughty. Maybe we should look at ourselves. A 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old should not be expected to sit still through 20 minutes of story time. Developmentally, that's inappropriate. And we can't shame children for doing things that are developmentally appropriate, but we do it all too often. Shaming children can lead to constant feelings of being a failure, which is horrendously bad for children's social emotional development. We always need to be taking into account what children's actual abilities are. If you don't know what the abilities of a child are, look it up. I have developmental charts and trajectories in the info box below this video. So if you don't know, what should my 5-year-old actually be able to do? Please look at those charts. Read those websites. Read some books about child development and about the things that they can and cannot do at certain ages. Just because you wish that your child were independent with making lunch does not mean that your child is capable of that. And just because you wish that a child could sit for a half an hour quietly without speaking does not mean that a child is developmentally capable of that. And when we expect more from a child than that child can give, we're harming our relationship with that child and we're harming the child. We must keep in mind that children's abilities are different. Children are different. This is a really big issue for me. I become very tense when expectations are placed on children that are too big, that the children never have a chance of meeting, and then they get shamed for not being able to meet those expectations. Maybe it's because of the developmental level of the child. The child is 5, the expectations are at a 10-year-old level, and then we shame the 5-year-old for not succeeding. But it also happens with kids who have different developmental needs, children who have sensory needs. There's a child very close to me right now who is biting her nails. In my opinion, why is she, and her parents do not like this. Her mom spent years trying to stop herself from biting her nails. Why does this young woman, she's 10, bite her nails? I think it's because they stopped her biting her shirt. They stopped her biting her hair. They stopped her using appropriate self-soothing strategies. And there's nothing left for her to do that is even partially acceptable to them. They took away her coping strategies. I can't take away a child's coping strategies and expect him to succeed just because I want him to look normal or to act like every other child. No child is like every other child. All children are unique individuals. Sometimes it is very difficult to tell if we are shaming children and what we could do otherwise. Here is an example that I recently heard. It was a group of children. Someone was up front wanting to talk. The children had already been sitting for a very long time, developmentally, and they were antsy. And this person got an irritated look on her face and said, "You're being very disrespectful. I am on stage. I am the grown-up and I am trying to talk. I'm going to wait until you are all quiet." That is shaming. That is telling children who have a normal child trajectory of development, i.e. they cannot sit still and be quiet forever, that they are disrespectful. You're labeling them with a bad label. You are bad because you are not listening. What is another way that we could do that? Number one, if children don't behave the way that you want them to, first look at yourself. Look at myself. Look at the situation. What could be different? What could be different? We could have maybe less sitting time. Maybe the activity was above everyone's head. If, for example, we have a large group of children and half of them can't read, then maybe doing a game, I don't know that this is the case. It wasn't the case with the situation I'm talking about, but it's an example of one way that this can go wrong for children. If I'm expecting things of these kids they can't do, if there's a game where they're expected to be able to read, then they can't. They're not going to be able to participate and they're going to run amok a little bit. That's expected. That's what happens when we don't know what's expected of us and we can't succeed. We feel like a failure anyway. It's bad. Okay, how could we have managed the situation better in what was said? First of all, we could have changed the expectations. Second, when something needs to be said, I could have said, had I been in charge of the situation, I could have said, I have something really important to tell you, but everyone can't hear me if you're all talking. So listen very carefully because here's what I would like to say. That has a very different feel to it than you're all being disrespectful. I'm going to wait until you shut up. Not that that's what was said. You can see that the attitude behind that is very different. If I were on stage, I assume I would have something interesting to say that the children needed to hear. There's no reason they have to feel ashamed for being a little antsy, especially with the extended period that they were expected already to listen. There's a lot of ways to help kids developmentally. I have a whole series that you can watch right there about how to prevent challenging behavior, including how to prevent kids from running amok, including how to organize a classroom or a home so that these challenging behaviors don't blossom and flourish, but so that children are better able to manage themselves and stay calm and pay attention to grown-ups and learn and relate better. That whole series will help you with that. So I'm not going to talk about that too much in this video because it would be rehashing all of those wonderful videos. But I will say, if children are not behaving the way that you want them to, look at yourself first. Are your expectations reasonable? Probably not. Children like to please. They do. They will please you if they can. And if they are not doing what you think they should, your expectations are probably too high. Then we can think of a way to communicate with children that respects their individuality and that respects their abilities. Yes, I believe that children can be quiet long enough to hear something that I have to say that's important. And I'm humble enough to realize that I am not the most interesting person in the world, and children as individuals should not be forced to listen to me all the time. There are better ways to do learning than just me standing up, blaring at them. Now, I need to say I am talking about younger children, probably elementary school age children. Once children get to be middle schoolers and even younger than that, but I don't know, maybe 5th, 6th grade, children are pretty much able to manage themselves most of the time. We are talking about typically developing children. Children who are not typically developing are going to have different developmental abilities, and we still need to be paying attention to those. We still need to monitor our own expectations and realize that if children are not acting how I wish they would, I need to change how I'm behaving. I don't need to coerce and control the child into putting on behavior like mine. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you realize that part of what my business does is distribute a curriculum called the Chirp Curriculum. And it is written for children with special needs, and it is mostly used by churches that have special needs ministries and by families who teach their kids spiritual stuff at home or who have homeschooling programs. Hi to all of you. Thank you for allowing me to be your partner in sharing God's love. For all the rest of you, this should give you a hint that I myself am a follower of Jesus, and many of the kids that I work with, I have worked with in church environments. If we take that into account, even if you are not a follower of Jesus, even if you follow a different religion or no religion, I think most of us can agree that respecting other human beings is important, that accepting everyone, regardless of their abilities, regardless of their preferences or who they love or what they do in their free time, accepting people is the basis, is the foundation of any healthy relationship. We accept people and we love them and we treat them with respect. And from there, in the case of children, we support them as they develop. We don't set expectations and then yell at them when they fail. We accept them and welcome them. I'm giving a small child a hug here. This is my motion. And then we can help them develop. If I have a kid who's constantly running out of the classroom, I'm not just going to yell at him every time that happens. I'm going to figure out what is setting him off? What can I do that helps him to feel welcome and comfortable? How can I meet his needs while he's in the classroom so that he has fun, so that he doesn't want to run away? It's a very different method of approaching relationships. My job is not to coerce. My job is to love, is to be welcoming, is to be relational, is to bond with people, with kids specifically in my field, but with people in general. Through that bond is how people change. Our lives are transformed through relationships with other people, not through people trying to control and manipulate us. And we need to bring that mindset into how we work with children also. It's all about relationships. Loving, respectful relationships. And we can't develop that by shaming children, by manipulating children, or by trying to coerce children into doing what I want them to do, what we want them to do. I realize that classrooms are difficult to manage. I realize if you're a teacher and you have 30 or 40 children in your classroom, it's very difficult to figure this out and to work your way through this. The classrooms that I've worked in have been full of children with sometimes some very serious needs and some aggression and violence and, all the stuff that comes along with different developmental needs. And it is very challenging to try to figure out how to respect individuality, how to accept the person, and help the child develop and grow and flourish. It's challenging, but it is worth the challenge. I believe that's what our mission is. When we agree to work with children, our job is to love them and support them in their development, not to coerce and manipulate. This was a heavy one today because it has really been on my heart. I see far too much shaming of children for things that are beyond their control. And I would like us to grow out of it as adults. I would love to know your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below. Feel free to browse the resources in the information box. Sometimes you have to click on more underneath the video, but I believe you can find those resources and put them to good use. Thank you for watching today. I will see you in the next video. Bye.